Yesterday on Newsfeed, you saw the Deputy Secretary-General of the ANC, Jessie Duarte, explaining that her party was going to the Electoral Court. They were going to ask that the Electoral Commission reopen the process to lodge the names of its candidates for wards for the local elections. The ANC there says there was a glitch in the matrix, or glitch in the system if you prefer, when it tried to lodge the names of its candidates. The economic freedom fighters say they are going to oppose the ANC's application. Now the United Democratic Movement says it wants to be a friend of the court in the application to support the ANC's argument, as I understand it. The leader of the UDM is General Bantu Holomisa. General Holomisa, good afternoon to you, sir. Why do you want to be a part of this case?
This process started on the 2nd of August of registering of political parties, when the IEC announced that all parties must register their candidates on the 23rd. But in the history, in fact, by the IEC's own admission, for the first time in the history, all parties objected to their timetable. Why? Because some of the political parties use conferences to conference listing to nominate candidates. But on the other hand, you are aware that the government had closed down the political activities because of COVID-19. But I did confirm or speak to a number of political parties who were objecting to this program. As far as the UDM is concerned, I'm sure you saw it on TV or you heard it in the radio. That is in the early morning of the 23rd, we did register our concern with the IEC that their system is kicking us out, and that meant some delays. But if one wants to do a forensic investigation, they can take our computer and check that. On the 24th, I wrote a letter to the CEO and asked for an extension because maybe other political parties are affected. It turned out that I was not alone. Let me just quote what he said to me. I quote, "The Commission accepts that the circumstances in which political parties had to prepare and select candidates was less than ideal given the prevailing COVID-19 circumstances, as well as disaster management regulations, which had prohibited political gatherings during third wave of the pandemic in the country," close quote. So if there is a sitting on Monday, we will be more interested as UDM to discuss the principle and say to the IEC, to the Electoral Court, we don't expect, for instance, the IEC to oppose ANC or any party which filed their papers, because this is their mess.
So, General Holomisa, I appreciate what you say, but isn't it true that all political parties were dealing with the less than ideal situation? I realize the ANC is bigger and, may I say, you might agree with me or not agree with me, more complicated than some of the smaller parties, but that's their problem. If I were a political party and I got all of my candidates in, why should another party complain? That's their problem. We both had the same deadline. We both had plenty of time to do our work.
Well, at the same time, it doesn't mean that you cannot register your concern. Hence, we are following the procedures. For instance, when the parties were complaining in the afternoon of the 23rd, the IEC extended the deadline from 5 to 9 p.m. So if they can extend or adjust the time frames without going to court to seek for an extension, why are they not flexible? When other people say, give people enough time. After all, the issue of the elections this year is out of their own hands. We depend on the Constitutional Court's judgment. But in between, the IEC can use this period to make sure that all parties' problems are attended to, but not to be rigid.
Well, the problem again comes that, it's also got to be fair. And the concern is that if the IEC were to reopen this now, or if the Electoral Court were to allow it to happen, what would mean then is that other parties might well complain that they've finalized their lists. Now, perhaps, and this has happened in the past, someone who is finalized on one party's list magically appears on another party's list. I don't think this has ever happened involving the UDM. In fact, I'm almost certain it hasn't. It has happened involving at least one other party that I know of. So it's not... I hear your argument. I don't disagree with it. I'm just saying there are other consequences to reopening the process, is what I mean.
There's nothing wrong in that. I've just cited an example that the time was extended from 5 to 9 p.m. So what stops them to give other parties another chance now for the whole day to make sure that they have complied with the requirements? We must not deny the right for the people to contest elections in their own areas just because of a technical glitch.
Except that technical stuff is important. The point I'm trying to make is that but when they extended the deadline had not yet passed. The deadline has now passed. I'm not a lawyer, but surely that's a material difference.
It passed at 5 p.m. if we were to follow your argument on the 23rd. The things which happen after 5 p.m. in your own argument would mean that they are wrong.
No, Simon Mabolo confirmed in the morning that they were going to extend it. So parties had about 12 hours notice.
So in other words, you are saying to me, you are in agreement with me that the IEC can extend the timetable. So
not once the deadline is passed, is my point. The deadline's now passed. It hadn't when they extended it the first time. That's the difference. I'm just trying to get you to explain your argument. That's why I put it to you.
I would suggest that you leave this to the Electoral Court. We can argue until tomorrow.
The National Freedom Party once had this problem, and I think they went to court. They lost. The case here, do you think it's very different? Do you think that the ANC is going to win?
At that stage, there was no COVID in this country. At that stage, the parties were given enough time to have their list conferences. This time around, all political parties were given 21 days as opposed to given months. I'm sorry, if we don't agree, let's accept that let's disagree to agree.
Well, Mr. Holomisa, my job is to disagree with everybody, I'm afraid. That's what I'm paid to do. So that's the only reason I put the arguments to you, is to make you explain your argument. But I appreciate the fact.
But Steve, this thing, it may not necessarily affect the UDM. It's a principle I'm arguing here. I'm saying even the UDM in the morning, whole morning, we were affected by this capturing system online from the IEC. So on those grounds, if a person can prove really that on this day I tried to end, I'm sure the computers would show that. Yeah. As a matter of principle, let us be flexible.
I appreciate the point. Bantu Holomisa, as always, good to argue with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bantu Holomisa is General Holomisa is the leader of the United Democratic Movement. I do appreciate it.